We're still on that focus on energy. Collectively, the continent is home to a green hydrogen industry that could be worth as much as $1 trillion US. That at least was a conclusion of a joint study between the African Union, the European Investment Bank and the International Solar Alliance. You might have missed it though because it was released on the 21st of December last year, right around the holidays. Now, as this collection see it, hydrogen production hubs could be set up in a handful of countries: Mauritania, Morocco, Southern Africa and Egypt, with a production cost of hydrogen estimated at about $2.10 thereabouts per kilogram. Now, all the places are mentioned, of course, have access to a couple of things: lots of water, predictably from the ocean, and immense solar PV potential. By their forecasts, the continent could produce 50 million tons of green hydrogen a year by 2035 and nearly 4 billion cubic meters of clean water at the same time. But here's the thing with this tech, though. Hydrogen fuel cells on paper, they're not really new. While scientists invented the first simple fuel cell back in the 1800s, they've been used to power spacecraft in the Apollo and the Gemini programs, even the shuttle missions too. Toyota, one of the few companies that will actually sell you a hydrogen-powered vehicle, they just sold under 11,400 of these Mirais, they're called, in the US between 2015 and 2022. Now compare that to the 10.5 million vehicles the company sold last year. That total sales figure might as well be a rounding error. So if we've had the tech to crack hydrogen, to store and to transport it for decades, especially here on Earth, it's a slightly different story when you go up to space. Why is the uptake of hydrogen in energy and transport so slow? That's why I started my conversation with the head of Sustainable Power Solutions at Rolls-Royce earlier today.
There are, of course, the technical challenges, right, regarding storage at high pressure or in other configurations. But I think the main reason is that we were always living in a fossil fuel dominated world. And it's simply easier to burn a fossil fuel directly in an engine than to convert it to hydrogen directly or indirectly, and then using the hydrogen in a fuel cell. There was simply no reason for it. Now, however, now that we want to go to a completely decarbonized world, we need to use renewable energy to drive our cars and to power our industry. And in that kind of context, the fuel cells that have absolutely zero emissions make a lot of sense. And that is why we are also working on bringing ourselves a fuel cell product to the market that can, for example, be used to provide backup power to data centers. And for us, what is most important is that we combine this then also with the production of hydrogen, right? Because in the past, the availability of hydrogen was also too low. If you have no hydrogen, using a hydrogen fuel cell doesn't make much sense either.
It also does come down to price, doesn't it? Because as you say, it's a fossil fuel dominated world where, you know, if you can get a litre of diesel, a litre of kerosene or petrol for, you know, under $2, at what price does hydrogen need to be competitive in order to match that, to convince the market that this is a better alternative, not just because of the environmental merits, but because this actually makes sense at a given price point?
I'm not the expert on prices. What I can say is that what is important to bring the cost of hydrogen down is that we scale up production. So far, the production capacity of electrolysis, so the technology that we require to make hydrogen, that production capacity was not there. And together with us, also other players are now ramping up the production of electrolysis technology. The other factor is, of course, we need very good renewable resource. That means we need renewable energy to be available in large quantities and at affordable cost. And looking at Africa, I think there is an enormous potential for renewable energy. The solar conditions are very good, and meaning you can at a low cost produce the renewable energy and therefore also at a low cost produce the hydrogen. And so I think the potential for Africa is huge. And that needs to be then balanced off in the end also with how much do people actually want to go green? Are there further incentives to move away from fossil fuels, which can, for example, be the desire to be independent, be energy independent, independent from imports of fossil fuels from other countries, or independent from other countries refining your fossil fuels.
If you take a country like, say, Nigeria, just for the sake of argument, huge market, 200 million people, bulk of them don't exactly have steady access to grid power, but they do have access to the Atlantic Ocean as well. So how then would we build out a power system that's based on hydrogen in a country like Nigeria?
That's a very good question. And the question is, do we want to directly move to a power system based upon hydrogen? The problem with hydrogen is that it's not an energy source, it's an energy carrier. And so what you need to do is you need to use renewable energy to produce hydrogen, then store it, and then later on, when the renewable energy, for example, from the sun is not there, you can use it through fuel cells or through hydrogen engines to produce energy again. So I'm not sure that's the first thing I would do, honestly. So I think you can already reach a lot by combining solar energy with batteries, for example. And hydrogen is more suitable for long-term storage or for conversion of power to chemicals. What you will see in terms of development is that hydrogen, the green hydrogen, first will go to the industry where hydrogen is already used today. So, for example, in the production of fertilizers. At the moment, hydrogen is used that still creates emissions. By using green hydrogen, you can remove those emissions and produce carbon neutral fertilizers. That is step one. Then as step two, I think you can use the hydrogen for making synthetic fuels, or you can use it for driving cars or trucks. And I think only as step three, I would use it as an energy storage for longer duration.